The water took everything in under 6 minutes. I stood in ankle-deep mud, holding a trash bag of clothes that I'd managed to grab before the back wall collapsed. No time for photos. No time for the little wooden clock Thomas carved. Just one bag and a purse soaked through. By nightfall, the rescue center was full. I didn't have the heart to beg for floor space next to crying toddlers and coughing seniors. So I got in my old sedan, turned the heater on, and drove toward the only place that had once felt like a finish line, Darren's house. When I pulled up, the porch light was off. I rang the bell anyway. Waited, then again. Finally, the inside light flicked on. The curtains moved. The door cracked open just enough for Darren to step out, hoodie half-zipped, one sock on. He didn't hug me. "Hey, it's late," he said. "I know. The house is gone. I just need somewhere to land for a night or two." He looked over his shoulder. "Em's asleep. The baby's been fussy. The living room's full of stuff from the remodel. I can sleep on the floor, couch, anywhere." His hand went up. Not rude, not sharp. Just enough to stop me. "Why don't you sleep in your car tonight? We'll talk in the morning." "Yeah." He didn't wait for an answer. The door closed behind him with a click I've never been able to forget. No porch light left on. I stayed in the driveway. Engine off. Coat zipped up to my chin. The baby cried once around 2 a.m. A light flickered upstairs. Then silence. I didn't cry. I didn't knock again. I just pulled the seat back and tried to keep my toes from going numb. By sunrise, the windshield had frosted over. I turned the key and drove off slowly, hands stiff on the wheel, a ringing in my ears that had nothing to do with the cold. I didn't look in the rearview mirror until I hit the highway. By the time the sun stretched over the rooftops, the frost on my windshield had already melted into thin streaks. I sat there for a while waiting, though I'm not sure what for. The porch stayed quiet. No door creaked open. No one peeked through the curtains. I thought maybe Darren would come out with a cup of coffee or wave me inside. He didn't. I backed out of the driveway like I was sneaking away from someone else's home, not my own son's. My hands ached from the cold, but I didn't stop driving until I reached a strip mall with a donut shop and a quiet parking lot. I closed my eyes for 20 minutes before the heat from the car gave out. That became the pattern. Strip malls, gas stations, grocery store lots where security didn't patrol too often. I learned which libraries opened early, which bathrooms stayed clean. I stayed away from shelters I didn't want. Questions, didn't want to explain why my own family wasn't an option. At night, I parked behind a faded truck stop off the highway. It smelled like oil and wet pavement, but it was tucked far enough from the road that I didn't feel exposed. I kept the doors locked and my coat over my knees. On the fourth night, a text buzzed through at 8:47 p.m. I hadn't heard from him since the driveway. "Hope you're okay." We're slammed with the baby. No punctuation, no question. I stared at it for a while, then put the phone face down on the passenger seat. I didn't reply. The next morning, I walked into the library with chapped lips and slept upright in a chair near the large print books. No one said anything. An elderly man 2 tables over gave me a knowing glance, then turned his page. The silence didn't feel cruel, just full. By the end of the week, I stopped checking my phone. I kept it charged at the outlet near the vending machines, but didn't open messages. Until the day one came from someone I didn't know. The library smelled like printer ink and warm dust. I'd claimed the same chair for 3 days now, near the tall windows close enough to an outlet that no one bothered me. My jacket served as a blanket. My tote bag served as a pillow. Dignity, I was learning, could be folded small enough to fit anywhere. I only checked my email because the librarian was kind enough to hand me a slip with free computer time. Most of the inbox was noise, receipts, alerts, insurance updates that no longer mattered. But one subject line snagged me. Notice of estate and beneficiary claim. Immediate review required. I almost scrolled past it. Words like estate and beneficiary belonged to other people, not to women who shower in truck stop bathrooms and warm their hands over dashboard vents. But curiosity nudged harder than hope. I opened it. Ms. Maris Layton, you have been identified as beneficiary of the late Ms. Coraline Avery, Santa Rosa, California. Assets include residential property and associated accounts. Please confirm receipt. My breath thinned. Coraline, a cousin, technically. Older than me by a decade, always wearing sharp eyewear and sharper judgment. We shared blood, not closeness. I hadn't spoken to her since my early 30s. A follow-up email held PDFs, legal letterheads, property tax history, a deed, transfer papers notarized 2 months before her passing, even a stipend for travel reimbursement. I scrolled and scrolled again. My fingers trembled, not from the cold this time, but from disbelief. At the counter, I whispered to the librarian, "Is there somewhere I can print this without it costing too much?" She didn't ask why. She just slid a visitor card across the desk and tapped the printer. The pages came out warm, real, heavy, mine. One phone call confirmed it. One more confirmed it again. Still, my voice cracked when I asked the lawyer, "You're sure this isn't a mistake?" "No, Ms. Layton." She was quite specific. I signed the travel forms slowly, each stroke deliberate, as if the ink itself needed my certainty. When I stepped outside, the sky looked different, wider, like it was clearing space for something I hadn't allowed myself to imagine. And for the first time since the flood, I walked toward my car like someone who finally had a destination. I crossed into California during the early hours when the highways felt quiet enough to breathe with me. The lawyer had arranged for the keys to be left with a neighbor 2 doors down. A woman in her 70s answered with a robe on, and curlers in her hair asked no questions and handed me the envelope with a nod that felt like some strange form of welcome. The house sat at the corner of Elston and Pine, modest but proud. Its paint was chipped in places, the porch railing leaned a little to one side, and a wind chime knocked gently in the breeze. But the door opened without protest, and the air inside didn't smell like dust. It smelled like lemon wood polish and old paperbacks. I stood in the entryway for a long time, my hand still on the knob, not sure if I should take off my shoes or turn around. The silence wasn't sharp here. It was soft, as if the house already knew how to hold someone like me. There was furniture. Nothing grand, just a love seat, a shelf of books, a kitchen table with 2 chairs. In the corner of the dining room sat a manila folder exactly where the lawyer said it would be. Inside were property tax receipts, utility statements, a small handwritten note in careful script. "Leave this for her. She'll want to see it herself." I didn't cry. I thought I might, but instead I just walked to the kitchen and peeled off my shoes and socks. The tile was cool under my feet. I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. My shoulders sank for the first time in what felt like months. I didn't open the drawers. I didn't rush to explore. I just moved room to room with slow steps, absorbing the shape of the place that was mine before I even knew it was waiting. That night, I lay in a bed that didn't rock with engine idle, didn't smell like vinyl or sweat. I slept without shoes nearby, without a key between my fingers. And when I woke up, the sunlight had already filled the room. A month can feel fast when you finally sleep without bracing for morning. It can also lull you into thinking hardship has closed its chapter. I was watering the small garden out front when the envelope arrived, official county seal stamped from Missouri. My stomach tightened before my mind caught up. Inside was a foreclosure notice. My name sat on the first line in bold, borrower Maris Layton. Property address Darren's house. I read it twice, then a third time, just to make sure reality hadn't slipped a hinge overnight. According to the county, a second mortgage had been taken out on the home 6 months earlier. Payments had stopped. The balance was past due. The house was headed toward auction. I never signed for a second loan. I never agreed to one. I had never even been asked. My chair scraped loudly as I stood. The quiet house didn't absorb the sound. It amplified it. I called the number on the letter, navigated menus, waited on hold until a man with a tired voice explained the process without emotion. I asked for full copies of the loan documents. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My calm was sharper than anger. The packet arrived by courier 3 days later. Pages thick, legal phrasing dense, and there near the back my signature. Except it wasn't mine. The M looped wrong. The pressure of the pen too heavy. The slant hurried, impatient. It tried to look like me, but it looked like someone imitating a life they'd never bothered to study. I didn't call Darren. I didn't text. I didn't ask for explanations I already knew. By dawn, the next morning, I had the folder clipped under my arm, my driver's license in hand, and an address for the nearest notary glowing on my phone. The roads were quiet, the sky pale, the hour belonging to people who move with purpose and no audience. I parked, locked the car, and stepped out, knowing the next signature I wrote would be my own. The attorney's office sat above a coffee shop and smelled faintly of cinnamon. He was young, sharp, and didn't blink when I slid the folder across his desk. I didn't try to explain everything, just the facts clean and clear. The deed, the forged signature, the unpaid debt. He nodded through it all and said, "You're still the legal owner. If you want to act, we can act." And I did. No yelling, no warning call, no long, guilt-laced email, just a signed directive and a scheduled delivery date for the notice. A courier would knock on their door, hand the envelope over, and walk away. Just like I had. I pictured the moment in pieces. Darren's face, his wife's confusion. Maybe they'd check the name on the return address thinking it was a mistake. Maybe they'd laugh at first. But there was nothing funny about a demand for immediate transfer of occupancy or payment. The house wasn't theirs. Not legally. Not anymore. I didn't sleep well the night it was delivered, but I didn't regret it. A week passed in silence. Then came the text. "Why are you doing this to us?" No punctuation again. That same strange tone, like I was the one breaking something, not fixing what they'd quietly stolen. I stared at it for a long time. My thumb hovered over the screen. Not to type, just to feel how easy it would be to answer, to explain, to apologize for setting a boundary. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the message to my lawyer. He responded on my behalf the next day with an official statement and a copy of the original deed. I didn't read the message before he sent it. I didn't need to. He used the same language they used when they filed that second mortgage, formal, factual, cold. By Friday, he confirmed they'd received it. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of all the things I'd chosen not to say. And it stayed full right up until I looked out my window and saw who was standing at my gate. It was late afternoon when I saw the truck pull up, white, rented, its back full of cardboard boxes stacked like assumptions. I was upstairs folding laundry when the sound of wheels over gravel made me pause. My chest went still before the rest of me did. I already knew who it was before I reached the window. Darren and his wife stood outside the gate, heads tilted upward, visually appraising the house like it had already been handed to them. The gate wasn't locked. They could have opened it, but something told them not to. Even entitlement knows when it's trespassing. I didn't rush down. I finished folding the shirt in my hands, placed it neatly on the bed, then walked downstairs. Not to make a statement, just to stay honest to myself. By the time I opened the front door, his wife was speaking at the gate, as though rehearsing for a moment she assumed she'd win. "This place is perfect for the nursery," she said, gripping the metal bars like a realtor staking a claim. "So much lighter than the old house. Darren didn't look at me directly at first. His eyes roamed the porch, the yard, the windows. Inventory, calculation, ownership by observation. When he finally met my gaze, there was no apology in it, no embarrassment, just expectation. I didn't step outside. I didn't ask them in. I didn't soften my voice to make it easier for anyone. I let the silence hold the shape of the moment before I spoke. Who told you this house was for you? The words landed clean. No quiver, no tremor, just placement. His wife frowned, confused by the tone. Darren's jaw tightened just enough for me to notice. We thought he started. I didn't ask what you thought, I said, calm as low water. A breeze passed between us carrying the faint scent of eucalyptus from somewhere beyond the fence. No one moved, no one spoke, and that stillness was its own verdict. Then Darren set his hand on the gate as if preparing to push it open. Darren pushed the gate an inch. Not fully, just enough to imply he could. A quiet test of limits. I waited. Let him feel the weight of that small choice. I think this is a misunderstanding, he said, smoothing his tone into something practiced. Reasonable, polished. We thought you wanted us to have a fresh start, that's all. His wife nodded eagerly. You've always wanted us to be close, she added. This could be good for all of us. We can finally be a real family here. A real family. The phrase snagged the air like a hook. I looked down at the path between us, the sober strip of concrete leading to the porch. No theatrics, no anger. Just clarity rising slow and solid. You had closeness, I said, and you used it to sign my name on a debt. For a moment, nothing moved. Not the wind. Not their faces. Not even the eucalyptus leaves overhead. Darren exhaled sharply through his nose, the irritation arriving before the regret ever could. Mom, we were under pressure. We never thought it would come to. But you bet on the fact that I wouldn't notice I finished for him. His wife crossed her arms. That sounds dramatic. We just needed help. Isn't that what family does? Help. As if I'd been invited to give it. As if it hadn't already been taken. I let the quiet sit between us until they understood I wasn't going to fill it with softness, excuses, or permission. I didn't come here to negotiate, I said. I came here to live. This house isn't an extension of what you want. It's the boundary of what I survived. Darren blinked. Confusion, not remorse. His wife's impatience soured into something defensive. Hurt, displaced by entitlement. I stepped back and closed the door, not hard, not soft. Enough to draw a line you can hear. The lock clicked. One turn, then another. A deliberate punctuation at the end of a sentence I wasn't revising. I leaned against the solid quiet of the wood, steadying my breath, already hearing the silence settle into something permanent. 2 days after the gate closed, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table and searched for estate attorneys in Santa Rosa. I didn't rush. I didn't linger. I simply moved forward with the same calm precision I once used when planning lesson units, balancing budgets, and scheduling parent conferences. This meeting felt like all of those past roles distilled into one moment, organized, necessary, unshakable. The attorney who handled the revision was older, meticulous, grounded. He didn't treat me like a wounded story or a vindictive mother. He treated me like a client who understood consequence. I appreciated that. We drafted the changes in clean strokes. Darren's name was removed as beneficiary of everything property accounts contingencies. No dramatic phrasing, no clauses about blame, no revenge disguised as paperwork. Just a quiet fact established on the record. In his place, I built something that resembled purpose rather than inheritance, a fund for women over 60 displaced by natural disasters. Not a scholarship with ceremonies or speeches. Just assistance, rent deposits, winter coats, motel vouchers, safety nets with no interviews attached. The kind of help that doesn't ask a person to justify their fall before it lifts them up. When the last page was notarized, I felt a shift, not triumph, but gravity. settling into something aligned. At home, the routine resumed in small, gentle rhythms. Coffee at sunrise. Pruning the rose stems that insisted on climbing higher than the fence. I used to close the blinds out of habit, shrinking from the world. Now I leave them open. The house doesn't feel watched. It feels participated in. I found Darren's old baby blanket in a storage bin, soft faded, stitched unevenly, where I once repaired it during night feedings. I folded it without ceremony and dropped it off at the shelter donation box downtown. No note, no explanation, no symbolism announced. Just another life continuing without my fingerprints on its future. Healing, I've learned, rarely feels triumphant while it's happening. It feels ordinary, repetitive, almost quiet enough to overlook. But healing also isn't the ending. It's the point where the real story finally starts to breathe again. The letter came mid-morning, slid under the mat by a mailman who didn't knock. I saw the corner peeking out as I stepped outside with my watering can. It wasn't addressed to me, at least not by any name I recognized. Some marketing thing. Another offer from a world still convinced I needed more. I dropped it straight into the bin. Back inside the house held the kind of quiet that doesn't ache, just presence. I measured cornmeal and flour by feel, not recipe. The scent of baking filled the rooms slowly, like it had waited for an invitation. The windows stayed open as the sun slipped behind the roofs across the street. A child rode past on a red bike, no helmet, no rush. Someone played soft jazz 2 houses down. I didn't close the blinds. When the oven timer dinged, I turned it off and left the cornbread to cool on the counter. No one was coming over. No one was expected. And for the first time in longer than I could name, I didn't feel the need to explain myself to the silence. I didn't think about Missouri. I didn't trace the moment Darren stepped onto that porch or how small I felt in his driveway. I didn't retrace my own voice, looking for places I could have softened or warned or stayed. I just breathed. I wiped down the counter, folded the dish towel neatly, turned off the kitchen light. The house darkened gently, 1 lamp at a time. At the door, I placed my hand on the deadbolt and held it there for a breath before turning it closed. Not to shut anyone out. Not out of fear. Just because this place belonged to me now, fully, quietly, finally. The wood was warm against my palm as the bolt slid into place.